our distinguished panel. A round of applause, please. Please sit. Hi, I'm Marcia Favalli, and we have an amazing panel, and we're going to have an informal and informative session. So we're going to break in protocol. We're going to go through theme and interest, and after they introduce each other to you, we're going to call everyone by their first name. We're a family, so we're going to have a conversation. But before we do, I think all of you will agree with me that the governor of the AIFC has done an extraordinary job in creating such a remarkable presence in the economy. And I think all of us have been celebrating the success of the AIFC. But there's always a founder, there's always an ideation, and there's always a visionary. So we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge a dignitary in the audience. Thank you for being here, Mr. Karat Kelimbetov. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, Kairat, but could someone give this gentleman a microphone? Could you just give us a brief summary of, from your vision to what Renat and team, because it's always a team, have been able to accomplish? Can you just give us your view, which is highly informative? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcia. First of all, I would like to congratulate Governor Viktorov with great achievements. I think yesterday he reported in the Management Council to the President, and the work of AFC been supported by the head of the state, which is always good for further development. And he announced it yesterday on reception that we now have registered in AFC more than 3,000 companies.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations.
I remember time when it was like 50 companies. So I think next year we will celebrate 10 years when was this idea been initiated in Kazakhstan. And AFC still is the first ever and yet only international financial center with a unique legal framework, regulatory framework, business-friendly, tech-friendly. I'm sure that you today will talk about financial institution role, how to bring investment to the country, to the region, and I think AFC will play significant role. I am proud of the new generation of the leaders of the AFC team, who is surrounded by the distinguished members of the government, Governor of Central Bank here. With such a great team, I think Kazakhstan will succeed in Mary's perspective. And I believe that it's a great opportunity for the private initiative. Now I am from private sector, looking forward to see what is the regulatory development here in AFC. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your words and for your leadership in creating the AIFC. All right, now to the task at hand. How do we make Kazakhstan even more attractive? What are the factors that investors consider? How can government help? So you see, when an investor looks at any opportunity in an emerging markets or otherwise, they look at an investment as an inverted pyramid. Macroeconomics down to the actual opportunity. So this is how we're going to take the frame of this conversation. So macroeconomic stability is the foundation. Diversification and opportunities to investment we're going to talk about, and the commitment to reform and transparency. So I'm going to start with the National Bank of Kazakhstan. But before I do, can everyone, starting with you, Gulf Capital Kanim, just introduce yourselves quickly to the audience? Your microphone, please.
Thank you. My name is Karim Salah. I'm the founder CEO of Gulf Capital, the oldest private equity firm in the Middle East.
My name is Kanat Sharlabayev. I'm Minister of Industry and Construction of Republic of Kazakhstan.
Can someone make his microphone louder, please? Whoever's controlling this on the audio?
I think when you have two on.
That could be me.
And George.
Okay. Thank you. Timur Suleimanov, Governor of the National Bank.
Rinat Bikturov, the Governor of Astana International Financial Center.
George Grunenbaum, Global Head of Distribution at the Ashmore Group.
Okay, thank you. All right, Timur, you're in a hot seat now. Okay, so FX and the central bank's strategy. Macroeconomics, we look to you first. Tell me about the policy in terms of currency and how the National Bank is acting today to help have a more stable investment environment.
Thank you very much, Marcia. And yep, very glad to see everyone here in the audience. Thank you very much to Rinat for inviting to this very exciting panel, by the looks of it. And to the question, well, macroeconomics. I think everyone in presence is aware of what the macroeconomics of Kazakhstan look like. So basically, we're growing at 3% this year, but we do believe that the future holds a lot of good things for us. So basically, in our own projections, the National Bank projections, which tend to be a lot more conservative than the government's, we do plan something like 4.5% growth for this year and raising to 5.5%, 5.9% for the 2025-2026. With respect, as you know, I think we all know that more than 400 billion of FDI has been brought into Kazakhstan since the independence, which is a very good result. I think we outpace everyone, not only in Central Asia, but more or less in the world in terms of FDI per capita. It's a very important metric, I believe. We do have very substantial financial reserves, both in the National Fund, which is more than 60 billion now, the reserves of the National Bank, which are more than 42 billion as of now. Of course, we do have the pension fund as well. So basically, overall, the state reserves that we can rely on are in close to 150 billion. So this is a good financial cushion that we can, of course, use for both ensuring the financial stability should need be, but of course, in order to finance investment. And this was talked about at the recent address to the nation by our president, that we do need to find the way without sacrificing the key role of the National Fund, which is sterilization and being a cushion, safety cushion for future shocks. Try to drive some of the investment very carefully into the national economy as well. This is the task that we have as the National Bank together with the government, and I do believe that some of the one of the conduits will be the Astana International Financial Center. So we'll work on that with Rinat. Of course, when we in macroeconomics, and especially for an open country, open economy such as Kazakhstan, FX is very important. It's important in terms of trade. It's important in terms of investment in, investment out, because everyone wants to repatriate the profits, which is the key reason to invest in the first place. That is, well understood here in Kazakhstan. So, of course, FX rate is very important, and especially given, again, that we are a WTO member, we're the Eurasian Economic Union member, and therefore you don't find in Kazakhstan a lot of the things that normally a trade policy would bring to the table. So basically, you cannot just put up the tariffs and insulate yourself from the incoming goods. We don't have that in our arsenal. So any exchange rate fluctuation is actually very determinant in terms of whether you're winning or you're losing at your own market, at the markets of your neighbors, and so on and so forth. The same goes for investment, of course. And since we're sitting at the investment panel, and we're looking at the center as not a trade center, but investment center. So we clearly understand that foreign investors, they want to come in at favorable exchange rate, they want to get out. And so basically any economics, any models that they cash flow and whatever, they want to rely on some hard currency, whether it's dollar, euro, pound, or something else. Well, what has been done in Kazakhstan, and Governor Kilimbetov, Marcia, you allow me to not address Governor Kilimbetov by his first name. Governor Kilimbetov had a very unenvious job of actually switching a very prolonged period of the exchange rate regime pegged to dollar to the free float and inflation targeting. It's a very tough job to do, and we, of course, we had to go through it because imbalances would just keep accumulating, and therefore to get rid of them, you just had to do, and you just had to go and depreciate the tenge. And obviously, for the resource-driven economy such as Kazakhstan, this is not sustainable. Sooner or later, you have to adopt. And if your key export, if your key tax contributor is fluctuating with the price of whether it's oil, whether it's minerals, uranium, or whatever, you have to adapt your macroeconomic instruments to that very macroeconomic fundamental. That was done in 2015, and since then, the exchange rate that we have is a free float. Mm-hmm. We had our own bumps. The road was not that easy, and of course, it wasn't a very free float to begin with. But right now, I think the last intervention that the National Bank had to do was in 2002, early 2002, because of the war in Ukraine, because of the logistics and supplies which were going through the countries involved, and therefore we had to intervene. But since then, we don't have any intervention. We're not present at the market as the National Bank, in our regulatory form. We do, so the way our fiscal system is set up, of course, is that we do have to convert some of the national fund reserves at the market, and therefore we're constantly present in the market, but we do not do it to intervene. We're just doing it because the fiscal system is set up in such a way. But we are transparent, and every month we declare what is the amount where we're going to sell, what is the amount we're going to buy to the pension fund, because part of the pension fund's assets, they have to be denominated in dollars because we want to provide good return to former and future pensioners. We're very transparent. And I guess, not to take any more time, I guess right now in Kazakhstan you will find pretty much the same exchange rate situation as any other country with the free float exchange rate regime. So basically, the stronger the economy is, the stronger the currency is. And therefore, it's a kind of, it's a good circle, not a vicious circle, that the more you invest, the better economy becomes, the more quality, the better quality you bring into the country, the more sustainable the economy is, the more diversified the economy is, and therefore the more stable the exchange rate is. So basically, I guess my message is the more you invest, the stabler the economy gets, and therefore it is the easier for you to get out of and repatriate some of the profits. And I'm happy to follow up on this, but I guess this is enough for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was quite a meaningful explanation, which I think sets up a good understanding of how the National Bank looks towards its FX policy and how to encourage investments from the top down. So I'm going to turn now to Kanat, and I'm going to ask our minister, when you look at, the need to bring in FDI into the country and to attract FDI in certain sectors, can you lend us some understanding of how you see the country affecting the FDI flow into the country, and what are some of the encouragements that we do, or some of the sectors that you think are interesting?
Thank you. Marcia, first of all, it's a great pleasure to speak in front of such an esteemed audience with such great panelists. There's a couple of things. Of course, like any country, we can talk about free economic zones and incentives we create and a funding support that our development institutions can provide, and generally a friendly investment environment. But I think at some point you kind of have to look at it at a slightly deeper level, right? And I'll start from not just the industry, I'll start with mining, for example. And mining is a combination of mineral endowment and jurisdiction. And right now, there's very few places in the world where that combination, right, reaches a state where it becomes attractive to international players. And for us, the evolution of our mining code, for example, and the evolution of the overall environment led to the fact that what we experience is 6% growth in non-ferrous metal industry growth year over year right now, right? Yes, commodity prices are helping, but generally investment to flow in that, and we're helped by the general carbon transition, et cetera. And it's a great jurisdiction. If you want to find something that is, say, rare metals or something to do with the battery transition in cars, in car manufacturing industry, we're in the right sweet spot where our legislation is institutionally evolved enough to be investor friendly, and at the same time, there's very few countries that has the same level of mineral endowment. On manufacturing, there's an interesting case specifically this year. What has happened? We actually overtaken mining as a share of GDP, and that's one of the things that have been for many years essentially goal of the country. Yes, the situation is fluctuating, right? But at the moment, having a manufacturing sector that is on par with mining sector, right, for many countries that have been, for a long time, commodities exporter has been unachievable, but this year that threshold's been passed. And we have some fairly strong incentive network for people to come, but also what we have is, I refer to this as a fast investor problem resolution. So if somebody's operating in the country, there's basically a way of solving their problems with relative ease and trying to bypass, like any country, there's always a bureaucratic element to what we do here in Kazakhstan, and we want to bypass that faster for investors who come with sizable investments. The other sector that we cover is construction, and I think fundamentally the idea for us right now is make construction more sustainable, and it comes back to the fact that you cannot big build cities without infrastructure investments. And I think our next play, and this is something that presidents have announced not so long ago, is the infrastructural investment, because we have built sufficiently enough. Construction sector is growing right now 8.7%. That is a very strong number, right, statistically, and we've been doing this consistently for a number of years. But what you do if your construction grows at that pace, you outpace the infrastructural growth. And now I think for us it's time to step back and reconsider the actual foundation of that growth, which is infrastructure. Because if you look around it, I think making water treatment, roads, power generation, power transportation, make it an investable industry, right? And that is not fast money. This is not something that you can bring in and bring it out. This is more fundamental. This is becoming part of the core infrastructure of the country. And I think this is where our next play is. I think, like, as I mentioned, in mining and industrial sector, we've achieved some improvements, a lot of work to do, but I think what's been lagging behind so far, and this is the new focus, and I think there's a very acute understanding both in the government and I think in a broader society that without expanding infrastructure, expanding our sources of energy, it will be very hard for us to achieve the growth targets that we set in front of ourselves. I think this is it from my side. Thank you.
Actually, you're not off the hook, because this has been really interesting. So what you're talking about is smart construction, right? Smart and sustainable construction, which is something that even within Kazakhstan, I'm just thinking out loud here, freebasing, as they say here, this is a place where we can actually incentivize some entrepreneurship, some local Kazakhs thinking about solutions to help with smart construction and to be able to have sustainability, opening up more markets for these. That's very good. And I love what you were saying about the traditional industries like mining. there are a lot of technologies now that are taking mining and trying to be more ESG friendly, which I'm sure you're looking into. So I would assume that this would be very interesting for the ministry to further develop in the country. Would that be fair?
No, absolutely correct. I think for us, if we talk about the kind of ESG factors in mining, I think everybody is becoming a lot more conscious about the fact that how we can develop it. On the other side, the environmental activism in the country is on the rise, and of course, now the mining sector participants need to react in an appropriate way. And I think the other fundamental thing about mining is the market demands traceability, market demands sustainability. You cannot sell cobalt if it wasn't appropriately mined. You cannot be part of the value chain when somebody down in San Francisco Valley drives a Tesla, right? If they can't trace the components of that battery down to actual mine where it was produced, and it was mined ethically, it was mined in compliance with the ESG factors, it's very hard to persuade consumer to buy that product. I think the environment has changed, and therefore we of course have to react. On the smart construction, I think is one more fundamental thing. We have been, as a country, somewhat relaxed about our energy standards and energy consumption standards. So it is not uncommon for anyone who lives in Astana to see a window open in the middle of the winter, because that's how we try to regulate temperature. And I think that has to go. And I think it's fundamentally, there's two things about it. It has to go for two reasons. The pricing of some of our utilities need to adjust, because we only care about something for what we pay, and we need to kind of start looking at our tariff policy, and it's also part of the plan. But also we need to encourage the construction companies to adhere to a stricter energy saving standard as well. So I think, and that's, but both directions, Marcia, you're absolutely right, are in high focus of what we try to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to bring on the foreigners. Great, yes. So George, I'm going to ask you, since Ashmore, we're going to go now to direct investments, and then we're going to go back to our dignitaries in Kazakhstan. So when you think through Ashmore, you're active in the portfolio market, i.e. the liquid markets, and you also do private equity. So I'm going to ask you here, as you heard the NBK and our minister, as a global investor seek greater portfolio diversification, and they're always looking for the efficient frontier, i.e. diversification, where does Kazakhstan stand today in the EM mix of portfolios? And I'm going to put you on the spot. The Development Bank of Kazakhstan has done many issues, both on the domestic and foreign sustainability bonds. It's a benchmark to green bonds in the domestic market, tenge, and obviously hard currency. Have you participated? And if you haven't, just because it's a benchmark, why not? Tell me a little bit about how you see Kazakhstan in your portfolio.
Sure. Thank you, Matsia. Pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for inviting Ashmore. So let me take a step back. Ashmore is a dedicated emerging market specialist. We only invest in EM globally. And as Marcia said, we've got a lot of opportunities. And where we start, and quite frankly, Kazakhstan is very well placed from this perspective, is the fundamental backdrop of any country. So all the analysis that we do, whether it's in our public equity portfolios or our fixed income portfolios, starts with analyzing growth, inflation targeting, all the structural reforms that are going on in a country, stability, transparency, predictability, etc. And on pretty much all of those metrics, Kazakhstan's made tremendous progress over the years, which is one of the reasons that we've been an investor here in public markets for a very long time. Now, where it becomes a little bit more challenging, so if we sort of bucket all of that into fundamentals, is technicals. So as an emerging market investor, we love EM, but we face the enormous challenge that every time somebody cuts taxes or what have you in the US, every global investor runs to the United States. I am American, but I find this very frustrating as an emerging markets investor because there are wonderful opportunities in EM, but people are massively overweight developed markets and underweight EM. So what we need when we have to shift our portfolios around, driven by macro themes and driven by investors who want their money back, is liquidity. Liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. That doesn't mean that we're a hedge fund portfolio that trades in and out of markets every day. But as I said, we have enormous portfolio flows as a result of investors changing tack. So some of what has happened here on the local fixed income market is quite favorable in terms of rolling up issuance into large deals. I think they're now about $13 billion local issues. That's extremely helpful for us as an EM investor in terms of managing our portfolio and our risk. On the external debt side, however, the dollar-denominated debt, which we've also been a long-term holder of, we would like to see more issuance. A greater development of that curve would be very helpful, and large issues. And on the public equity side, where we are also long-term investors, in fact, I was observing a Caspi cash machine yesterday, which I absolutely loved because I saw a woman come up and use the QR code to take out money, and I think back on my JP Morgan Chase account in the US, and it takes me forever to get $100 out. So it works much better here than it does in the US. But the bottom line is we're big investors in the public equity markets, but we would love to see more IPOs, more issuance, more choice. So, you know, the bottom line is we need more in all of these markets. We love the fundamental backdrop. And to your specific question, the issues have been too small. So, you know, we like billion-dollar plus issues. And 250, 500 are very challenging when we're managing a large EM equity or fixed income portfolio.
I think especially, just a term so that everyone's in the know, it's called a half a yard. A billion is a yard, a half a yard is a half a billion. So now that you know that, you can actually work on a trading floor. And so the idea here is that there's rumors that the sovereign may come out. There's rumors that maybe even a quasi-sovereign holding company comes out. If that were the case, less than $1 billion, I'm not interested. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, that's the issue. So we have pooled vehicles, we have segregated accounts. Some of our segregated accounts are investment grade only. Obviously, Kazakhstan qualifies for that. In order to manage these portfolios, we need large issues.
Thank you.
Super important.
Thank you. All right, Nurlan, you. So the question here, we talked about portfolios, we talked about FDI, we talked about the macro framework, but you need to give us opportunity to invest. That's what I'm hearing, besides the debt market. So my question to you, what are you doing presently? What can we expect in form of pipeline? Private equity, I'm coming to you, Karim, right after. So what do we have in our pipeline of opportunities for investors to come, helps FDI, raises the profile of the country, both as acquisition, because private equity can either be IPO investments or strategic buys, right? Talk to me, how is SK helping us here?
Yes, thank you very much. Once again, very good morning to everyone. Very happy and excited to be here. Let me brief you what we are doing in terms of privatization in our IPOs in Samruk Kazyna. And what is Samruk Kazyna today? Samruk Kazyna is a sovereign wealth fund with assets under management of roughly $81 billion US. Our EBITDA for the last year amounted to $9.8 billion US, and our net income was in the proximity of $3.7 billion US. We have 7 listed companies in our portfolio with a total market cap of roughly $32 billion US. And the last success story, the freshest one, was the IPO of Air Astana, which took place in February this year, and I have my fellow colleagues from Air Astana board and from Air Astana team, which I'm very happy to see here today. I think it was a great example of effectiveness of the management of the company, a great example of proper business climate which was created in the country. Back in 2001, we as Samruk Casino have invested $8.5 million into Air Astana. And the capitalization of the company at the listing date was slightly south to 900 million, 50x. And this is not oil and gas, this is not metals and mining, this is a tough competition, cutthroat business. We are competing with Lufthansa, with Chinese airlines, with Turkish Airlines, with the big boys, with a huge history and deep pockets. And I think that's a tremendous achievement which outlines the right climate. And again, it's almost $1 billion company, and I think it's fundamentally undervalued. The penetration of airlines in Kazakhstan is 3 times lower than the one in the similar countries with GDP per capita like Turkey or Malaysia, for example. Try to buy a ticket to Almaty. The planes will be full. That means there is demand, there is cash, and we are trying to bring relevant supply. The labor force in Air Astana is one of the most qualified globally and relatively low cost. That's why a lot of competitors hunting our pilots and crew staff. On the other hand, safety is our priority, so we have localized some of the checks of our aircrafts and some of the training programs here in Kazakhstan. So this was a small pitch for Air Astana. I'm not talking about the fuel cost here in Kazakhstan. So I think for Ashmore, it's a good thing, and for Gulf capitals, it might be a good thing to look at. But we do, of course, have Kazatomprom, which is also a London-listed company with a 25% free float and the market cap north of $12 billion. We do have a couple of targets in our portfolio, which are Kazakh Railways and Kazakh Gas. It was announced earlier in the mass media about the plans to get those floated. But we also do have our challenges, and which we need to face and overcome. The tariff system. We are currently in talks with antitrust and with our regulators regarding the tariffs for railways and gas. Unless we balance it out, we won't be able to do an IPO. And here we have to make sure that our inbound transportation tariffs are above the cost on one hand. On the other hand, we have our national bank, which is targeting inflation, and we think that those tariffs will not affect the inflation, and there is an ongoing dialogue and debate. On the other hand, we have some social concerns that those tariffs may raise. So we are moving towards the golden middle and golden balance. So these are the deals that I think Ashmore or the likes of Gulf Capital or other global institutional investors might be looking for and should be getting involved, because that represents, in my opinion, a great investment opportunity.
Well,
thank you very much.
Hot spot here. Did you invest? That's okay.
We did invest in Astana.
Well done.
And,
Okay.
Fantastic transaction. And we're just waiting for the direct flight to New York so I can come for weekends.
So am I. Trust me, so am I. I'm going to Dubai.
2026, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
We have the board of Air Astana here. Can you raise your hand? Please. Please, we need the direct flight from New York. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so since we're on the private equity theme, I'm going to come to you, Karim, from Gulf Capital. See, I love private equity, and I think that it's so important as a fabric of economic diversification and the bubbling up of opportunities. So what I love about your business model, if I can share it, taking a little bit of your thunder, but I'm a fan of yours too, George, is that you like to get companies and take them, incubate them in their domestic market and bring them out. So you also want to create a new marketplace, which creates awareness not only of the company, but the country where it comes from. And I would love to see a lot more of that in Kazakhstan. You've got so many intelligent people with great ideas. The human capital here is just so deep, but not many people know about that, right? So I would like for you to just share with us, how do you see private equity specifically for Kazakhstan helping in economic diversification, human capital exposure, not even building, some of that, yes, but exposure, and how can, for example, your business model help open up markets for the entrepreneurs or brownfields that have now a strategic investor?
Great. Before I answer that, I have to tell Mr. Nurlan, I came on Air Astana and I was very impressed.
Very good.
I usually fly on Emirates Airline and Etihad Airlines, and I tell you Air Astana is up there, so well done. And we need a flight to Abu Dhabi, please.
It is a flight to Dubai, but please don't stop. Continue about Air Astana.
Listen, let me tell you about Gulf Capital and our investment strategy. We are based in Abu Dhabi. We've been in business for almost 20 years. We're the largest private equity firm in the region. But our expertise is building regional and global champions. We like to invest in a local company, make it regional, and then global. We like to back management that travels well. And a lot of our companies start in the Gulf, then they go to Asia. And now, recently, we're pushing them to come to Kazakhstan. We have several companies operating here in the water, environmental business, in business services, IP, patents, protection. We're looking at bringing healthcare, health tech, and fintech companies here. It's a big market. It's growing fast. I'm very impressed about all the economic diversification and the momentum of the region. As Mr. Taimur said, next year is looking like 5% growth, 5.5%. That's remarkable by any measure. So we like to connect regions, essentially. We started in the Gulf. We opened in Singapore. We're partners with the government there, licensed by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And we're creating this new Silk Route, taking our companies from the Gulf to rest of Asia. But that Silk Route wouldn't be complete without passing through Kazakhstan. So we're connecting three regions. We would like to connect the Gulf, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia, essentially. And we want our companies to travel and operate across this market. People are surprised our companies operate in 65 countries around the world. So we don't like to put our eggs in one country in one basket. We like to diversify. And that makes our exit much easier. When you're operating in a broader geography, number of countries, and you grow profits, it becomes easier for us to sell these companies, whether it's strategic bidders, financial bidders, or even IPOs, essentially. So we look forward to bringing our companies to Kazakhstan, and maybe one day investing in Kazakh companies and bring them to the Gulf and Southeast Asia. I think that you could see the rise of interesting champions here. So that's something very exciting. We also would love to look at some privatization opportunities. By the way, my PhD is in privatization. I started in this career. So would love to partner with the government, with the SK as well, and see how can we invest pre-IPO and help institutionalize and grow these companies ahead of an eventual listing. So for me, all of this talk is very exciting. I'm seeing a lot of momentum in Kazakhstan. I've been coming here for 3 years, and every time I come, I'm even more impressed and encouraged to come and bring my global investors to invest in Kazakhstan.
Thank you. Wasn't that great? Thank you. I see deals happening. I see deals happening. This is what we want. So now I'm going to go to you, Renat. So I invest in private equity. I either have to sell it to another strategic, or I have to bring it to IPO. Tell me a little bit about more, how can we get more domestic companies to vie for IPOs? How can we incentivize some strategic partnerships, in addition to SK, because you're still in the mix, right? You could look at a company and go, you're not IPO ready, but perhaps you can be sold to a strategic buyer. So tell me what exactly is the AIFC doing for literacy, and how can I prepare for an IPO? How do you spot opportunities? Are you cultivating the next generation of IPOs? Because we have a lot of state companies. I'd like to see more private companies.
Well, thank you, Marcia, for the question. I guess before going into that kind of level of details, maybe I'll take this discussion a little bit on a conceptual level of risk, right, in coming to the country, because this is all about, as Governor Suleimanov said, we view AFC, first of all, as an investment center, right, not a trade center. So it's about bringing investments, and not just foreign, but local as well, so about mobilizing capital, right? And then the capital, many financiers would know, is about the parity of risk and return, right? And risk is also associated with the cost of capital. Therefore, I think that originally, and the idea behind the AFC is about lowering that risk for the country and investments into the region. Not only the risk, but also the transaction cost. Therefore, we brought the common law jurisdiction, all the rules that are familiar in many other jurisdictions for private equity, other firms who work in UK, Middle East, Asia, similar rules, so that the transaction cost, meaning like cost of doing due diligence, cost of KYC, and etc., can be lower. That, I believe, lowers the, first of all, transaction cost, so, and then creates the efficiency. Second, about the lowering the risk. Risk is an uncertainty, right? And there are many factors that are uncertain. We cannot obviously solve all the problems, right? But what we try to is create this stable environment. The stability is exactly what you need, right? I mean, that we hope that that lowers the risk of investing into the country and region, meaning lowers the cost of capital and then the expected return from that capital. And third, probably, which is more relevant to your question that you have asked, and what George talked about, is creating liquidity, right? That's a huge discount for any investments if you don't have a liquid market. First of all, you cannot really price properly any risk if you don't have a liquid market. Second, if you don't, you have limited options of exiting, again, you putting a lot of discount on that investment, right? Whether it's public or private, actually, investment. So what we're really focusing and trying is to build that capital market, or in more academic term, direct financial market, right, without the intermediaries. And I mean, like, banks are very important, but we have quite sophisticated systems. So our idea is to build here that direct market and make more and more assets tradable, liquid, so any investor, whether it's private equity or public, can exit from the market with, when they need it. So it's about the increasing liquidity on the public market. In our case, on Astana International Exchange, again, by bringing, because liquidity internally is quite limited, so we need to bring these foreign fund managers. We need unique stories like Air Astana, like Kazmunaygas, the one IPO we did before, which can be found only on local markets. About this redomiciliation story that's happening, right? That kind of stories put us on the map, international map. Second, now when the public market is kind of flagship project, right? Now we're focusing more on private market, which is private equity and venture capital. I believe like venture capital market here is maybe small, but it's lively, and it has developed in the last few years with young entrepreneurs coming with different ideas, with some fund managers actually coming into the country, and especially in IT. I was surprised recently. Bloomberg shared with us their proprietary data from platform called Bloomberg FDI. So a lot of the people who search in Bloomberg Kazakhstan, among the industries, top industry they search is actually IT and information technology, right? I mean, which is the same, I guess. And then comes the traditional industries like mining, like energy, which was a surprise for me. But also that the S&P recently told us when they do market coverage, they actually now look among other industries into IT, right? So I hope that we as an AFC, with all the legal structure, have created opportunities to grow that VC market here. And last, probably in lowering that risk, is the real risk and then the perception of risk, right? So, and that means giving more information, disseminating more information, talking to investors, and having them come here to see that the country is thriving, it's growing, it's just this chart books and numbers on the screen. It actually lively. Again, the construction is going, people are here, know what they're talking about, they have plans, they have strategies. So that's the fourth, I guess, part where we as an AFC add value into the lowering the risk of the country. Thank you.
He's being just a little bit shy, which is not Renat, because he didn't even mention the breakfast this morning where he honored many entrepreneurs and their impact. So I really want people, could you just say, like, very briefly about what that is? Because I thought it was such a beautiful moment and how you're really actively helping them.
Yes, we have a lot of the G2G projects, and I believe we are now part of the investment architecture of the country, so we help G2G projects, but also I really want the private sector to benefit as well and be able to attract capital. With that reason, we now, and there was an announcement, we're creating AFC Business Club, which is, you don't have to be an AFC resident, you don't need to have a company in the AFC to be a member of it. This is for top management and founders, owners of the business. So we want to hear voice of the market. We want to come up with the solutions, meaning financial solutions and other that actually will be used by the market and will be helpful for the market, but also hear the suggestions on the reforms, on the policies from those who actually shape the private market and the economy.
Thank you. I just want to say that one of the awardees that was featured speaking, Arif, from DNA Payments. I love how he ended. I don't know if Arif is here, but nonetheless, well done. Where is he? There you go. Nothing but love for you. I love the end when you said, if there's anyone that's looking to create a business, I'm available to help you out, to help you. That kind of mentorship we need to develop more in the country, so good on you, Arif. Well done. Thank you for supporting. Okay, Gulf. Since we're talking about exit strategy, and there's a cultivation of that, right? What do you do when you look at an opportunity on the private equity side? You brought them to market. How do you in tandem deal with the limit, if you're in a market that is limited in exit strategies? How active are you in securing the strategic acquisition, or do you look for them to IPO in other places? How do you deal with that? Because that is a factor. No one invests without knowing how to exit. That's rule number one. So how do you manage that?
It's true. I mean, before we enter, we look at how we're going to exit. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, by internationalizing our companies and having them operate a number of geographies, we increase the number of exit options. It could be a local Gulf IPO. We've done IPOs in London. We looked at Hong Kong, hopefully here in Kazakhstan in the future. But when you internationalize companies, you have many more exit opportunities. The other thing we're very focused on, as a private equity firm, we're a controlled buyout firm. We like to acquire controlling majority stakes in the businesses we buy into. It's because our ability to influence the companies, restructure them if needed, to accelerate the growth, but more importantly is to help our exits. Every time we talk to a strategic buyer, he tells us you either deliver controlling stake or there's no deal. So that focus on majority stakes is very important to help our exits. We've sold to strategic buyers from Japan, from China, from Australia, from the US and Europe, because we are delivering controlling stakes in market leaders, fast-growing sectors in exciting countries. So that focus on control is important to help our exits to strategic buyers.
Okay, so this is what I see. Made in Kazakhstan, out in the market, foreign investor, FDI. I love that circle. We're going to hold you to that. Okay, so Ashmore, coming back to you. How can we better incentivize co-investment opportunities in the country? So now I want you to put a little bit more of your private equity cap, right? And also, how can asset managers be more effective in the country? It used to be that they wanted our money and then they went away and invested someplace else, right? We want them to invest here as well, right? So how can you think through a framework where Kazakhstan can be even more attractive for co-investment opportunities? And what do you need from the government for that? Yeah.
I think a lot of what the government has already done is extremely helpful. I think Renat referred to quite a bit of it. Our approach is very much about being local. So I think the first thing is you have a huge advantage building a local asset management platform. That's the way we've approached things in other countries. Hire locals who understand local dynamics, who understand how to navigate local law. Obviously, local law needs to be the backbone of the framework within which we would operate, and then make sure you have the compliance rigor, the operational rigor to first class, be it from the US, UK, or what have you, bring those skills to the local market. So where we've succeeded is it's a combination of local and external. And in terms of the investments per se, there's enormous opportunities in infrastructure here, as there are in many emerging market countries. For us, it's a question of finding the right people locally that we can build that business around and can execute those opportunities.
Great segue to you, Nurlan and SK. Dying for co-investment opportunities. You've got the pipeline and some success stories. Talk to us.
Yeah, it seems like a very useful panel discussion. Yeah, I have already something in my mind to share with both of you gentlemen privately.
That's what we want, right? Applause. This is what we want.
Yeah, but talking about our pipeline and the way we co-invest with, there are two modus operandis how we deal with. The first one is the JV. We create a JV with our strategic partner where we take a minority stake preferably, and the strategic partner has the majority stake, obviously. We co-invest. We take the equity risk on our chest on one hand, but on the other hand, we provide all possible support on the ground. We are very well connected. The Prime Minister is our chairman of the board, therefore we can be helpful to our partners in any ways. And this model has proved to be successful, and the testimony to that we are doing. We have JVs on our renewables projects with Aqua Power, Masdar, Total Iran, our Chinese partners. We are very active with our Qatari colleagues from PIH, where we have a JV where we have a strong pipeline in the gas projects and sector. We're doing a gas pipeline from Aktubinsk to Kostanay with them, gas processing plants, etc. So we have polyethylene, polypropylene projects that we are doing with our foreign strategic investors and partners. We have Putadian in our pipeline and more. The second modus operandi how we deal with our foreign partners is by creating a joint investment fund, like we did with our Azerbaijani colleagues. We have established a joint investment fund with Azerbaijan Investment Holding. We signed the charter and whatever documents in July, and we domiciled it in AIFC. Thank you very much for having. We are very happy to have such an opportunity, and it was a very comfy jurisdiction for our Azeri colleagues as well. And hopefully we will announce our next deal in November. There is a pipeline already. We are looking at the projects inbound and outbound. So this is the second way how we can co-invest together with our foreign partners. Generally, Samruk Kazina, we perceive ourselves as a catalyst for foreign direct investments, and we are open for new partners to come in to Kazakhstan. We are also open for new partners to invest outbound as well. I think we are one of the best possible partners here in the country due to the fact that we do possess a relevant industry enterprise in the sectors that we are present. We are financially sustainable, and we are politically quite capable. So would be happy to talk to you and you after this
Thank you.
panel discussion. Thank you.
So Kanat, and then back to you, Timur. But local content in deals are important when we look into construction and industry, because it also helps create, right, diversification in the economy. Can you just let our investors know what's the approach about local content?
This is a great question, right? And I think we a lot of countries have, I think, taken that path, right? As Timur Suleimanov rightly said, we're not an isolated country. We operate in the open environment, so there's not necessarily too many trading barriers that we can put in place. But what we can do is to encourage our big mining companies, or big oil companies, or big construction companies to actually work with the local producers. So I think Samruk-Kazyna does a great job at that, and we all collectively trying to help, because the deeper level of localization is, right, so it does impact, of course, the GDP growth, but it also enables to build competencies within the manufacturing sector. I'll give you a slight example. I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I think raw aluminum is about $2,000 per ton or something like that, right? So one step ahead, and you process aluminum to make that door over there, and it's just a panel of the aluminum, and it can be melted, can be easily done. That's basically 2x of value instantly created. Very basic logic. I don't have to be always an exporter of raw aluminum if I can export something that's ready-made and already can be finished good. And I think from that standpoint, our goal to increase that level of value added within the country helps from both sides. So we increase our value add within the country. Creation of value leads to GDP growth. Additionally, it's a competencies, right? Nobody's going to talk to us if I come and say, go to Siemens or to some other big European manufacturing company and say, well, we've never done this before, but trust us, right? That's just not how it works. That's how it works. We've been your partner, right? And we localized bit by bit, and now we are ready to do something else. And that's kind of the conversations we're currently having with a lot of our trading partners. But also the other thing that we're doing is that it's very hard to predict something. But now when Samruk-Kazyna buys something, what they try to do is say, you know what? I'm going to give this contract for you not for 12 months. We're going to give it to you for 3 years, right? So long-term agreements help to deepen, right, the level of competences and the level of value add within the country. So that's kind of the way we're trying to approach it, and we encourage the businesses to try to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, absolutely. And putting on my hat as the independent board director for the Development Bank of Kazakhstan, I want to say that every time we look at a project, we always ask the question, what is the local content? Because that is how we help spur diversification and help localities and hyper-localities. And that's part of the diversification and the resilience that government has to create. It comes from outside macro, like the NBK has said so eloquently, but it also comes, and I think you will agree, Kanat, in building a strong diversification in the base, not just local, but even hyper-local. And that's really, really important. Okay, Timur. I think you're going to have the last word. But really me, but you and the panel. So if you look at the financial sector, investors are always talking about the banking system, financial sector, how robust, how clean, how strong, how stable. Some closing words, and how do you see the financial sector and what needs to be done?
Thank you, Marcia. Well, the financial sector, everyone knows, everyone's in presence knows that it's banks dominated financial sector that we have in Kazakhstan, and this is something that is not changing overnight. Regardless of all the efforts that we've been putting in over the years, it's a very difficult proposition, and I'm not sure that we're going to be anywhere close to the likes of Great Britain or the United States. We're a continental country, continental law country, and therefore banks are going to play the major role in financing the economy. Oh, the banks are doing fine. Everyone knows that. I mean, they're doing fine. The NPLs are historic lows. All the capital adequacy ratios are shooting through the roof. They're more than enough, both from the internal purposes and regulatory purposes. So they're doing really, really good. One of the problems, of course, is the diversification of their activities. We all know that digital has changed and the banking landscape. Kaspi, of course, is the obvious example here, but not only them, but many other banks are going into that direction. So one of the pressing challenge that we have here, I mean, this is not a reform sort of level, it's just an operational issue, is that we need more credit to the economy, to the real sector of the economy. So we are having, I think, I mean, for now it's manageable, but it's imbalance between the wholesale and retail banking. So back in 2021, I believe, right after the pandemic, we were at the even in terms of stock of the loan portfolio. It was pretty much 50-50. Now it's something like 60-40. And retail, well, in many other countries, big manufacturing countries, it's a good thing because the retail demand can be a driver of the economy, like in the United States, because most of the goods that you're purchasing are either produced in the country or heavily local in local content. And unfortunately, it's not the case with Kazakhstan. So basically, when you have a very shooting through the roof retail loans to population, basically they turn around and buy something foreign, and this is not a good thing. I mean, we're an open country, open economy. We adhere to all the WTO standards and etc. But macroeconomically, it's and in terms of industrial trade policy, it's not that good. So I guess one of the key challenges, both for the national bank, the government, and the financial sector regulator, is persuading, let's put it this way, the banks to put more credit into the real sector of the economy, and that's a challenge because retail is becoming so digitized, and it's becoming more and easier operationally to provide loans to people, rather than look at the project by project and take all the risks. And so basically, I'm afraid some of the managers, newer managers at the banks, they will be losing their skills, their expertise in terms of actually determining whether or not this is a good business project. So we do need, I do believe, some sort of a regulatory push, as long as a moral push, that we need more credit to the economy. It's not only about retail loans anymore. And this is operational, but of course we are very keen on developing capital markets, and we're not leaving that idea alone. We're not going to subdue to the circumstances. So, and once again, both in Almaty at the Kazakhstan Stock Exchange and here at the AIX, we are more than determined to help both the government, the center, the regulators, to attract more liquidity. And we'll be talking, I put some of the notes and I sent to my colleagues on the public debt, what we need to do, and we need to get into discussions with the Ministry of Finance. But of course, there's a lot of education to be done, and I hope that the business club that Renat was referring to, one of the topics will be some sort of IPO school. Some middle-sized company from Atrau region, what they need to do to become a listed company, at least from debt instruments, but then become a fully IPO-ready company. And then once we have depth, I do believe that something like 30% is achievable in terms of overall financing of the economy coming from debt exchanges is, I think, achievable. I guess I will stop.
No, I think that's a great answer. I think that's a great answer. And if we develop IPOs, domestic IPOs, that makes monies for the local investment banks. It's a cycle. It's a beautiful one, and we need to continue to do this. And I'm going to make two statements. In terms of co-investment, the Development Bank of Kazakhstan is looking to actually work with investors, and they can be an interesting, for example, anchor in some big deals. So I think that's a conversation you should have. Okay, so for those of you who do know me, I could not have a panel that would just be a panel, although they were amazing. So I actually want to announce, because of your conference, Renat, I am, and I'm also, by the way, I'm sorry, the independent board member for QIC. Gabaz, the Chief Investment Officer, he's right here. This is your 5th day, right? Yes. God bless. So we talked 3 days ago, and I said, we have Gulf Capital, we have Ashmore, we have an opportunity, let's do something, let's not everyone blah, 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 although you guys didn't do that, you were actually on it. So I'm happy to announce, and you guys are going to witness this, that QIC and Gulf Capital will be signing a strategic partnership agreement right on this stage right now.